What's up everybody, my name is Brenden and this is BigBearB Creative. Welcome back to the how-to video of this week. Now the last couple weeks we have been going over to my computer and I've been showing you an image and telling you a little bit about how I took that specific image. Today we're going to be a little bit different. I'm going to kind of talk to you about a certain kind of photography and how you could do that. I'm going to give you a little couple tips on settings you need to use, kind of equipment you need and stuff like that. So the theme of today's video, as you probably saw in the thumbnail, is long exposure photography. Now if you've been watching the past couple weeks, I've done a lot of long exposure not photos, yes photos, but videos about how I took those photos and then we edited those photos, so be sure to check those out if you've missed those. But today I want to talk about how you can do your own long exposure photography. So first we're going to start off with what you need. So for long exposure photography, you need obviously a camera. Now you can't just have any certain camera. Your best bet's going to be either a mirrorless or a DSLR camera. Now I know my phone, I have a Samsung Galaxy Note 9. There's a setting if you go into the Pro section that you can do like a 10-second exposure, but it's not going to be the same as if you're using a DSLR. And if you're wanting to become a professional photographer, you're most likely are going to have either a mirrorless or a DSLR anyway, so you're good to go there. The next thing you're going to need is a tripod. Tripod is extremely important. Monopods don't really work here just because you need to hold that thing completely steady, no movement at all for as long as you can. So for that you're going to need a tripod. Now there's a bunch of different ones out there and you kind of just have to go through which ones you like more, if they're good for your height, if they're not good for your height. I know for me right now my main tripod is more of a videography tripod. So the height for me is not good. I have to squeeze the legs in as much as I can while still be able to keep it steady because I'm over 6 feet tall. A lot of video tripods don't go that tall. But if you go for a more photography based one, which I do have one on my Amazon list, so eventually I will get that one. But those are going to be a little bit taller for you, which is going to be much better. It's going to allow for one, just higher up shots that you could get, but also it's just more steady because you don't have this single cylinder going up the middle. That's you're going to find more in a video tripod. The photography tripods, they're just 3 legs that go straight up to where the camera is mounted to. But I could do a whole other video about tripods, so we're going to stop with that. The next thing that you don't have to have it, but it's definitely going to help if you want to do a much longer exposure times, which base cameras, they really just go to a 30-second exposure. If you need more than that, you're going to need this product, and that's going to be a shutter release. Preferably one that locks. If you want to go a little bit higher up, you could do ones that you could set the timer yourself and you just click go and it will turn it off when it's all done. But if you're not trying to go that high and you're just trying to start off from a beginner level, just go ahead and get one that locks. They're about $9 or something on Amazon, so just go ahead and check those out. So those are going to be the 3 main things that you're going to need. You can get additional things that we'll talk a little bit later, that we'll talk about a little bit later in more details, and those are going to be ND filters. So if you're just starting off, make sure you have a tripod and a DSLR. You can use any lens that you want, preferably one that has ability to be extremely sharp. And if you want a zoom lens, go ahead and get a zoom lens. It's probably best to have ones that have the lowest aperture, so ones that's like a 2.8, or you can even go down to the 1 if you really want. But I have a whole video about how I have done astrophotography on a kit lens, and that's just a 3.5, and it goes up, but the lowest it goes at the 3.5. So you'll be perfectly fine with whatever lens you get with your camera, your mirrorless, your DSLR, anything like that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is settings. Settings is what makes a long exposure a long exposure. So we're going to go through each one of those, being kind of what you need to have set in your camera, then how you set each thing. So by that I mean you're going to need to be in manual mode, and this is going to allow you to control everything from ISO, shutter, aperture, all of that. Also, you're going to want to be in manual focus, at least if it's later in the day, which is most likely when you're going to do a long exposure. You're going to want that just because the camera is not going to be able to autofocus when things get too dark. So you're going to want to be in manual setting and manual focus. But yeah, so manual everything. Then from there, you're going to go through each one of the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. Now the shutter speed is the main thing you need to worry about, because that's what makes a long exposure a long exposure. That means that the camera is going to be open for as long as you tell it to. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you could find out how long you need to have it open for at the, or towards like the second, not second, this would be the second part, the third chapter of this video. Yeah, so you're gonna need to have it set at least 1 second. Basically, long exposure is gonna be anywhere from a second or more in terms of how long the camera is open for, which is the shutter speed. So you could just set that on your camera. There's many different cameras and the ways that you set it. Mine, I have to hold down a certain button and then scroll and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I do for mine. I normally, if I'm doing a long exposure, it's going to be probably anywhere from about 10 seconds or more. I really don't do anything under that just because it's not going to be as clear of a long exposure. The water, like if there's water or something, which is very common for long exposure, it's not going to look quite right because it's going to be kind of in between a long exposure and just a normal quick action one, which we did edit a video kind of like that. I think it was last week, so go ahead and check that out. And you'll see there what I was talking about with the water and how it's kind of in between both. It's not quite as smooth, but it's not quite as sharp. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and check that out. So then the next you're going to want to set is your aperture. Now, if you're doing something like astrophotography, which is a kind of long exposure, you're going to want your aperture completely wide open, which is going to be the smallest number it allows you to go to. So like I was saying, my kit lens video that I did, that was a 3.5, so I had it down to 3.5. Some lenses are going to be able to be a lot more open. The more open you could go, the better. Sometimes you'll want to go a little bit under it or smaller, just a little bit. That's just going to help with certain camera distortions because some lens will distort at the wide open aperture. So just kind of mess with the one that you want there. It's also going to kind of affect what all is in focus. So if you're wanting like a very short area to be in focus, that aperture you're going to want really low if you're talking about non-astrophotography. So it's just middle of the day or blue hour, golden hour, anything like that. You're going to want, for landscape wise, you're going to want it to be between about f8 to f11, just because that's going to give you the most focal range and the most range where everything is super sharp. Some cameras, if you go a little bit above that, you're going to start losing some of that sharp focus and you're going to have what's called soft focus, which you don't want. Or you could also do a certain technique that's called photo, or you're basically, not photo stacking, but it's, I can't remember what it's called. Basically, you take two different exposure or two different photos and you're going to have the camera focused at different areas. So you'll focus for the back and you'll focus for the front, and then you'll take whatever, you'll take the best parts of each to just make one photo, just so everything is super sharp. And wow, I'm really stumbling on my words today. But that's basically what you're gonna do if your camera doesn't have as good of a, well, not really your camera, it's more of your lens. But if you're in that f8 to f11 or above that, because you need that for a certain exposure time or anything like that, that's what's gonna lead to the soft focus. So you'll do that stacking to try to get rid of that and just make it a completely sharp focus. Yeah, so that's going to be basically everything you need for the aperture. Like I said, depending on what kind of long exposure you want or how much you want in focus, you'll change that. And we'll do a whole other video all about aperture and everything you need to know. So make sure you subscribe so that you will eventually see that video. But next one we're going to talk about is ISO. ISO or ISO, depending on however you like to pronounce it, that's really just going to be your balance that you're going to use. And when we say that, you still want to stick to the lowest amount of ISO that you can. So for long exposures, just go ahead and crank it all the way down. For my camera, the base ISO is 100. So that's just what I'm going to set it at. And that's going to make sure that I don't have any pixelation or any distortion in the photo, because you want, again, to be super sharp. So you have it as low as you want, or as low as you can, because that's going to mean that you're just going to expose longer to bring up the level so everything's balanced. And to make sure that everything's balanced, either have the histogram in the top corner of wherever it is on your camera. On mine, it's on, well, it's not on the live view screen. You have to take the photo and then check it. So if yours is like that, you might just want to go through a couple test runs with your camera just to kind of see what levels you're going to need. And to help with that, there's a certain apps that you could get that are going to tell you what exposure times you need depending on your settings. And you could also extend those to, if you want like the star trails in your astrophotography, you could extend how long your camera is open using ND filters that we talked about earlier. Now basically ND filters are either going to be those little circular sunglasses, kind of a way to describe it, that you put on your lens. It's gonna just darken it, which means you're gonna have to have that shutter speed open longer to allow just as much light in. So depending on how long you're wanting or how smooth you're wanting things to be, you're gonna have to use those ND filters if that's what you're looking for. Now ND filters, they come in those little circular ones like we were talking about. They also come in squares. You have to put this whole kit on the front, but that means that you don't have to keep buying different ND filters depending on what lens you have, because some lenses are bigger than other lenses. So you just get the square ones, and that allows you to use it for whatever lens size you're using. So it's kind of a hit or miss depending, because there's much more available ND filters that are a circular kind that are going to be, some will be cheaper. You're still going to have the really expensive ones, but there's more variety of the circular ones than the square ones. So you just kind of have to pick and choose what you want. You want the ease of not having to have a whole bunch of them, or do you want to have the cheapest, most available, I guess you could say, lenses that are going to be the circular ones. So yeah, so ND filters basically act as sunglasses for your lens. It's going to block some light, which means you can just have it open longer. So that's going to be what your ISO, going back all the way to ISO, that's what that's for, just to kind of get the levels that you need and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so supporting things for your long exposures, like we said, are going to be those apps that are going to kind of be a chart. So you'll put in like what ISO you're using, what your aperture is, and then it'll tell you what your shutter speed needs to be perfectly exposed, so where the histogram is showing it correct. Now these might be off a little bit, so like just with anything, make sure that you check your camera, because your camera and your lens can affect it. But there's, like I said, there's a bunch of apps, so you should go ahead and check those out. And those shutter release remotes are also going to be a huge help. If you guys have any more questions over long exposures, how best to take them, if there's any ways to get things to be more sharp or anything like that, please let me know down in the comment section. I'd love to answer as many questions as I can. Also, you can head over to my social medias and ask me there too, or check out all the photos and stuff that I post. You'll get tips and hints. If I release something, or I have a blog that's coming up, or released a blog, you'll be notified there. You can also see photos that I'll be posting that either you might be able to vote on what kind of photo or what type of photography we're going to do next or anything like that. Like I said, be sure to check those out so you just become more wrapped up in this whole BigBearB Creative universe, I guess. But yeah, so go ahead and check that. Go ahead and check those out. And then also, while you're down in the while you're down in the description box, which is where I have my social medias linked, if you don't just want to type them in yourself, go ahead and check out my photo prints. Those are available on my merch page and on my Zazzle store. I have quite a few of them available now, so you can check them out. You can go ahead and check those out. There are going to be a bunch of landscape photos that I've taken from a bunch of different places around the United States that you could choose what size you want, if you want it in a frame, what kind of paper quality you want, anything like that. And then you could go ahead and put that up in your home, your office, or anything like that. It both goes to support Zazzle, which is where I sell them on, and it supports me. So I'd appreciate it if you are looking for some landscape photography for your home. Go ahead and check those out. Also, if you're looking for some eco-conscious apparel, I do have some available too. Those are going to be on my merch page as well as on Teespring. Again, I'll link those all down in the description as always. But basically all my apparel, they're all nature design based, and they're also based off of helping nature as much as we can. So if that's something you're really looking forward to or looking to add to your closet or anything like that, if you're adding that to your closet or anything like that, go ahead and check those out. And again, I would very much appreciate it. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button down below. It really goes a long way, not only promoting this video and this channel to others who are wanting the same information, but it's also telling me that it's good information, you're enjoying it, and I should keep making more of these for you guys. And if you do want to keep seeing more of these, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's really gonna, again, tell me I need to keep pushing these out to you and just see that we're growing something here. So I hope you like this video. I hope you have a great day. Be safe during this troubling time, and go be creative.